Cassandra Reeves, a flamethrower expert, is the colony's only hope to stop a swarm of the parasitic beasts that hold nearly 100 thralls hostage. Outfitted with a custom flamethrower, she accompanies a livestock prowling creature back to wipe out the alien queen's birthing lay and save her village from the brink of extinction. The morning fog clung like cold sweat to the outer wall of Colony 7. But Cassandra Reeves hardly even felt it as she twisted the fuel regulator on the Mark 7 flamethrower. The weight of the weapon was comforting against her back. It was a familiar weight, the weight of the countless hours it had taken for her to perfect her aim. At 28, she was the youngest flamethrower specialist in the history of the colony. And today would determine was all of that training had not been a colossal waste, that it had been 40 minutes since the emergency klaxon had split the pre-dawn silence. The blare it sounded resonating through the reinforced walls of the corridors where their underground lair now lay. Cassandra had flung herself out of her bunk even before the second blast, muscle memory carrying her through the familiar pattern of behavior to dress out. Her flame-retardant coveralls, her reinforced boots, her tactical harness, and, last but not least, the flamethrower itself, her constant companion these past 6 years. 12,000 souls manned Colony 7, the only substantial colony in the Northern Territories since the Great Collapse. Carved into the side of Mount Ashford, the colony was a feat of engineering and will, its inhabitants clawing out at life in the rugged wilds that had swallowed most of civilization. But that Aquara was, now, under attack from something even more devastating than the weather or wild animals. The parasites had returned. The sound of Cassandra's boots was a loud stomp on the metal grating as she headed down towards the lower levels and heard the colony's defense coordinator Marcus Chen was already screaming into his headset. The control room was alive with activity, readouts of temperature readings from all over the tunnel system illuminating the screens. On several monitors, red blips pulsed ominously in a cluster around the area that the colonists referred to as the Deep Warrens, a stretch of natural caves that had been sealed off years before. Cassandra, just the gods I wanted to see, Marcus said, his weathered face pinched with concern. We have a complete breach in Section D7. The seals lasted for 3 years, but something's eaten through them from within. She pored over the tactical display, her sharp eye discerning the infestation patterns. The parasites scientifically designated as Cordyceps militaris variants, although the colonists often referred to them as crawlers, seemed to have bred a nest deeper inside the empty areas. The thermal signatures indicated movement, and lots of it, moving on, and getting bigger by the hour. How many confirmed, she mumbled, already doing the math in her head. Fuel capacity, burn duration, estimated target density. The arithmetic of survival. More like 300 active signatures at least. Marcus answered quite grimly, but that's nothing compared to what you can see. I think there might be twice that many in the farther back chambers. Dr. Petrosky said. Cassandra nodded, her jaw tightening. She had fought crawler infestations before, but never at this level. They were insidious parasites, not much bigger each than a house cat, but lethal in numbers. They were intelligent, and they came in a storm of synchronized coordination. Their chitin bodies could not be pierced with normal weapons. Worse, they were harboring a fungal spore that could zombify its human host in a matter of hours after infection. What's our containment status? She asked. We closed off all the entrances to the main colony, but the bugs are spreading through the mining tunnels. If they make it to the water treatment plant or the hydroponics base, Marcus didn't have to complete the sentence. Colony 7 would be a tomb without water and food production. Cassandra loaded her flamethrower over her shoulder and triple-checked all her gear. It was a weapon of her own invention, refabricating mass-produced armaments for better efficiency, and a longer range than even the great standard military issue. She'd painted the gun matte black with silver flames along the barrel, a tiny bit of personality that her teachers had shaken their heads at but never ordered her to remove. I will need a support team, she said. 2 standard armed flankers, and 1 guy who watches the thermal scans. Already assembled, Marcus replied. Team Alpha is staged and waiting. But Cassandra, he took a break, burden of responsibility bearing down on his reflections. If this backfires, we're going to have to weld off the entire basement. That means I don't come back, she concluded. I understand. The staging area was aimed chaos. Her team was already prepped. Jake Morrison, an ex-military explosives expert with thin fingers and steady nerves. Aria Blackwood, a scout, smaller frame, deadly with a rifle. And Thomas Rivera, their communications officer, taking orders from command and control from a few miles behind them. Listen up, everyone, Cassandra said to her team. with the tone of a voice whose commands had never failed. "We will be exploring the deep warrens in search of the main nest to exterminate. Intel reports say the crawlers have set up a breeding nest in the old mine supervisor's office building. We just need to go in, burn it, and get back alive." She indicated the tactical display screen on the wall. "The infestation is centered here, in the lowest parts of the tunnels. We will hit the maintenance entrance on level 4 and work our way down through the emergency stairwells. Jake, you take the motion scanner up front. Arya, you watch our 6. Thomas, you're in contact with command and you're monitoring thermal imaging." The team nodded, their expressions grave yet focused. They had played together before, and each knew his part in the deadly dance they were about to play. "These things are clever," Cassandra pressed on. "They'll attempt to funnel us into kill zones, break us up, outnumber us. Stay tight, keep your head in and trust your training. If anyone is infected, protocol is to quarantine immediately. No exceptions." The words seemed to grow heavy in the air. Everyone understood that quarantine was a euphemism for a bullet to the head. They filed out through the colony's main ways, past the hydroponics bays of green stretching under imitation suns, past the residential modules where scared families cowered behind fortified doors. The deeper they descended, the denser the air was with a palatable sense of despair. What gave the first indication was the smell. It was an insidious organic stench that reeked of death and other alien life forms. Cassandra's adjusted suit filtered out most of it, but some slipped through, leaving her stomach with a tight feeling of consternation. The walls bore evidence of crawler work, long strips of drag marks in the metal, splotches of sticky residue, that shined all sweaty and viscous in the light from their flashlights. "Thermal's got movement about 50 meters up," Thomas whispered into the comms. "Multiple pieces, but it's not moving our way." Cassandra raised her fist, and the group stopped. She could hear it now, a soft chittering as if it emanated from the walls themselves. The crawlers were close. The service entrance to level 4 was a tunnel cut into the face of the peak. Speakers had to rely on emergency lights that through menacing shadows and footsteps could be heard, despite their attempts to keep their movements quiet. Cassandra's flamethrower seemed to grow heavier with every step, though she knew it was almost pure mind weight. She slung this weapon through burning buildings, through frozen naught. It had never failed her. As they made for the stairwell, the first crawler burst in, and then it unfolded itself from a grate in the ventilation like a spider bursting from its web, the 6 legs crawling with a predatory lope. About the size of a large dog, it had an exoskeleton of mottled brown and green, which allowed it to blend in amid the colony's industrial surfaces. But it was the eyes that caused Cassandra's skin to crawl. Multiple groups of compound eyes that seemed to have an intelligence that was completely otherworldly. She didn't hesitate. A measured blast from her flamethrower burst the thing into a spinning ball of fire. The scent of burning chitin pervaded the air, but she was already in motion, her team following her like a well-oiled machine. "Contact," she reported to command. "Single crawler, eliminated." More chittering sounded around the walls, and Cassandra knew they'd lost their quiet approach. The crawlers were talking, announcing their presence to the hive. It was to become a running battle from here. Their flashlights sliced through the darkness as they made their way down the stairwell. What appeared to be spiderwebs decorated the walls, but Cassandra knew better. It was silk from a crawler spun to make trap lines and communication networks. The infestation was farther along than they had thought. Several contacts, closing fast, Jake said, his scanner painting targets on his heads-up display. "They're coming from above and below." Those crawlers were striking with very organized method. They gushed out of secret openings in the walls, the light of the team bouncing off of their chitinous bodies, half mask, half armor. Cassandra's flamethrower hissed brilliantly, and flames washed across the bodies. A part insect screech, part human scream echoed as the beasts died. Arya's rifle barked again and again, each repeating concussion landing with the precision of a machine. Jake's shotgun thundered in the narrow space, and buckshot tore through crawler carapaces. But after every creature they killed, 2 more appeared to take its place. "They're attempting to come around us," Thomas shouted from his place. At the end, thermal picks up movement in the ventilation. Cassandra whirled, the point of her weapon tracking up as it dropped from a vent above her. The thing landed on the teen's back, its mandibles straining for the chinks in his armor. She didn't dare shoot for fear of hitting her teammate, so she pulled out her sidearm and fired 3 rounds to the center of mass. The crawler rolled free, bleeding mint ichor. "Thank you," Jake gasped, pulling at his suit to see if he had any cuts in it. That was too close. They descended further, a string of scorching crawler carcasses in their wake. The plague of fried Flesh and liquefied chitin was suffocating, but Cassandra made herself think. They were near the breeding chamber now. She could tell by the desperate nature of the crawler's assault. Level 6 was a labyrinth of mining tunnels and old machinery. The crawlers had made it fit, draping everything in their silken building, unspecified and unspeculatable structures for reasons Cassandra didn't really want to think about. The heat readings were going through the roof, indicating a lot of bodies massing somewhere up ahead. That junction is where the breeding chamber should be located, Thomas said, looking at his map. But thermal reveals at least 100 signatures between us and the target. Cassandra studied the tactical situation. A frontal assault was suicide, and they were in no position to settle down for a siege anyway. The crawlers were starting to adopt their own methods, picking up on past encounters. It wouldn't be long before they'd be hopelessly outnumbered. There, she indicated a maintenance shaft that ran alongside the main tunnel. We can use the old cable runs to skirt the main concentration. It's going to be tight, but it should penetrate close to the breeding chamber. The maintenance tunnel was just about wide, enough for a fully geared up human to squeeze through, and the crawlers had taken it as a motorway. Silk was everywhere, the walls pockmarked with tiny holes where the creatures had squirmed through. It was as though we were threading the gut of some giant creature. Cassandra was in front, pilot light from her flamethrower dancing spooky shadows on the walls of the tunnel, but behind her she heard her team members breathing hard in the cramped space. The shaft appeared to extend on, and the longer it did so, the heavier the feeling of an alien intruder in his domain became. The breeding chamber was even worse than she had imagined. The mining supervisor's office had become a nightmare place. The walls across all walls were draped in webbing, and it quaked with egg clusters, pulsing with interior light. They filled the air with their spores, and the walls appeared to breathe as the pulsing mass of life moved within them. The queen was in the middle of the chamber. She was 10 worker crawlers big, and her fat ass expanded and contracted rhythmically as she pressed each egg out. They were intelligent, humanly so, and very much a disconcerting glare as Cassandra suddenly began to shriek and laugh. Jesus Christ, Jake muttered over his cum. Barely heard. What in the hell is that? Cassandra didn't answer. She was already measuring fuel intake and burn and plotting escape routes. The queen was attended to by at least 50 workers, all working together with the polished exactitude of a military operation. This would be the battle of her life. Thomas, fall back to the junction. Keep overwatch. Jake, Arya with me. We are going to burn this whole place down. The battle was chaos. From every side the crawler fell upon them, its swarming multitude appearing to be inexhaustible. Cassandra's flamethrower swung back and forth, walls of fire forming before the screen that the creatures could not cross. But they were clever, using the room's architecture to their own advantage, making the team constantly adjust positions. Jake's shotgun was empty, but he had his sidearm. Arya's rifle had overheated, and she pulled out her secondary. Their ammunition was running low, and it appeared that the crawlers knew so. Pushing the ball forward at every opportunity, they offered themselves up to deplete the team's resources, and the queen watched it all through those terrible, intelligent eyes of hers, now and then issuing orders that her workers followed without hesitation. She was the source of everything, the central intelligence orchestrating their infestation. Kill her and the others would fall, but she was insulated by ranks of workers, and Cassandra was running out of fuel. She had, maybe, 3 minutes of continuous burn time left, and that would have to be enough. Cover me, she yelled. To her team, I'm going for the queen. She rushed the chamber, and her flamethrower dug a gouge into the ranks of crawlers as she charged. The animals lunged at her, but she never hesitated. She couldn't stop. Colony 7's future depended on finding that bloated monstrosity and cutting it down to size. A crawly hit her back, its pincers looking for her throat. She rolled, smashing it against the wall, and was on the move. Another jumped at her from the side, but Arya's rifle crackled, and it fell back. Jake's shotgun roared, sang a path through the body heat. She made it to the track of the queen and activated the maximum burn of the flamethrower. The beast began to scream as the flames consumed her, her grotesque form contorting in pain. But she didn't die easily. Flames licking over her, she snatched toward Cassandra, her great forelimbs attempting to pull Cassandra to her death. The platform they fought on fell out from under them, and the pair plummeted into the egg chamber. Below, Cassandra's flamethrower was knocked from her hands, skittering across the silk floor. The queen, mostly burnt to cinders, crawled forward with her arms, eyes aflame with unearthly fury. Cassandra pulled her sidearm and emptied the clip into the creature's head. The Queen recoiled, a green ichor that was not strawberry juice from his bruisings trickling down her body, but she pressed on, her jaws parted, exposing teeth made to rend flesh. And then Jake was there. The gun pressed too. The Queen's head. The chamber shook with an explosion, and the great beast finally stopped moving. Fuel leak. Arya shouted, her voice clipped with anxiety. The flamethrower's compromised. Now, we have to get out of here. The chamber was rapidly filling with poison gas from the broken weapon. But probably even more significant, the Queen's death had thrown the entire infestation out of whack. The men were killing each other, their coordination gone. They had their chance. Get going now. Cassandra snapped as she picked up a broken weapon. The whole thing is crashing down. They were able to stagger their way back along the maintenance shaft. The ragged attacks by the crawlers making escape actually straightforward. The mating room was crumbling upon itself, the stanchions beneath the creatures giving away. The mountain itself appeared to be ejecting the alien presence. THOMAS. What's happening? MATTITTALKLY asked, meeting them at the intersection with the same relief-washed pallor. Command's telling me those thermal signatures are going off the charts. Whatever you were doing in there, it's working. They surfaced as the lower levels resonated with a series of controlled explosions. The colony's demo crew was locking down the infected areas, so any crawlers that were left behind would be sealed in and starve for something to eat and fuck. Afterward, while the colony was praising their fortuitous victory, Cassandra was at the medical bay having her wounds dressed. She'd received a nasty cut across her ribs from a crawler's mandible where the suit had prevented any serious harm. Most importantly, she tested negative for spore infection. Dr. Petrosky completed binding her wounds and then moved away. You know, I've been studying these critters my whole life, and I have never seen nothing like what you did down there. The Queen's death rippled like a psychic shock through the entire Hive network. The others finally just stopped. Cassandra nodded, even as her thoughts turned to the next mission. There would always be a new danger, a new threat to Colony 7's existence. The crawlers were only one peril in a world crammed with them. The flamethrower, she said. How bad is the damage? Repairable, Dr. Petrosky replied. They just wanted to receive the parts and get it shipped out. Or still be waiting some time, but like I said, we really need the parts we need to get. The fuel system got the brunt of it. Marcus Chen stepped through the entrance, his face a mask of the tiredness of a man who had just watched his community almost perish. Cassandra, I just wanted to personally thank you. What you did down there, ... It saved us all. Doing my job, she said, but satisfaction was evident in her voice. This is what she had trained for, what she had given her life to, and defending the people of her home from the things that seek to destroy them. The Colony Council wishes to offer you a commendation, Marcus added. You're being considered for Chief of Security. Cassandra considered the offer. Instead a desk job, tame administrative tasks, meetings and paperwork. It would be safer and more comfortable. But it wouldn't be her. I do appreciate the offer. She finally says, but I guess I'll have to go with what I know how to do best. We need someone to prevent the crawlers from returning. Marcus smiled. I figured you'd say that. They just approved the funding for a brand new flamethrower, top of the line. Yet we're pushing out our defenses around the sealed areas. In the course of a few days, everything again assumed its usual aspect in Colony 7. The areas remained under constant watch, but there was no sign of fresh crawler activity. The infestation had indeed been wiped out, its command structure shattered by the Queen's death. Cassandra devoted her days to training the fresh recruits, sharing the type of knowledge that had saved their isolated world. She taught them about fuel mixture ratios, about reading their heat signals, about those split-second decisions that could be, back then, life or death. But even more than that, she taught them about duty, of the responsibility that came with being the people who represented the thin line between civilization and chaos, about the cost of survival in a world that no longer operated by the old rules. Her latest flamethrower was a masterpiece, tailor-made to her requests with cutting-edge fuel efficiency and targeting. She had left the matte black finish and silver flames a tribute to the weapon that had saved them all. It felt good in her hands, with a balance and deadliness. The colony crawler distress. 3 months after the incident on the colony crawler, a distress signal came in from Settlement Beta, 200 miles south. Another plague, another spawning ground, another dying world. When Marcus entered the armory to meet her, Cassandra was getting dressed. You don't need to do this, he said. It's not our responsibility. It's pretty kinky, she said, retying her harness. We're all in this together. If we don't stand for each other, who will? She departed that morning with a new crew, and her own flamethrower was now pumping fresh fuel and her heart swollen with mission. The world was perilous, teeming with beings who wished to eat everything human, but as long as there were like her who would hold the line against the darkness, there would be hope. So, the transport vehicle rumbled southward through the wasteland, over and around the ruins of the old world and toward a new town that needed them just the same. Beyond them, Colony 7 was a fortress against the mountain, its lights a guiding star on the open plain. There was yet unexplored peril before them, and the prospect of another engagement with the enemies threatening to destroy them. Cassandra reached to verified her weapon and reclined in her chair. This was it, her life, her calling, her mission. She was the inferno that purged the night, the sentinel that held back the tides of barbarism, and she would keep standing, for as long as her strength lasted and her community needed her. And the vehicle rolled on into the night, bearing its precious cargo toward another desperate fight. Cassandra was not afraid, however, only strong and determined. She had been through the worst the world could offer, and she'd won out. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it with fire and steel, with courage and cunning, with the unwavering spirit of a woman who would never let the darkness have the final word. That was the bottom line in the end. Not for glory, not for recognition, but just the way that it feels to stand up when you can't, of the one who ran toward danger, not away from it, of holding the flame that would never be extinguished, however dark the world might be. Before them, the road extended, across the battlefield and toward what would be one more clash, one more opportunity to change the course of history. And Cassandra, Reeves' flamethrower expert of Colony 7, was not about to take it lying down.